The dust doesn't settle. In this room, it watches. My great-aunt Eleanor left me her entire estate. It sounds impressive, I know. The reality was a rambling, centuries-old manor, basically sinking into a forgotten patch of countryside, miles from anywhere. It was the kind of place where the silence was so heavy, it felt like a weight, and the house groaned at night like some dying animal. Eleanor's will was full of bizarre, ancient rules, but one stood out. She'd underlined it twice in her spidery handwriting. The attic is to remain sealed. Under no circumstances is the door to be opened. The locals knew about the room, of course. When I went to the village for supplies, the old woman behind the counter at the general store gave me this knowing, pitying look. "You're the one who inherited the Blackwood place," she said, not asked. I just nodded, and she leaned over the counter, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There's a saying about that house, about the attic. They say the dust in that room hasn't settled in 200 years. It doesn't settle, it watches." I should have listened. I really should have. I should have left the heavy chains on that door, left the thick, ugly wax seals right where they were. But a warning like that? It's not just a warning, it's a dare. I didn't get it then. I thought I was inheriting a house. Turns out I was inheriting a prison, and I'd just been handed the keys. Section 1. The Inheritance and the Discovery. Those first few weeks felt like I was living in some gothic horror novel. The isolation was an ache. Rain would lash the windows, and the wind howled with this mournful, almost human sound. The house itself was a maze of forgotten rooms, everything covered in white sheets like a convention of ghosts. But my mind just kept going back to the attic. The door was at the very end of the second-floor hall, made of a dark, heavy wood that seemed to just drink the light. A thick, rusted chain was wrapped around it. The links were as wide as my thumb, and locked with this massive, ancient padlock. And the edges of the door were sealed shut with brittle, yellowed wax, stamped with a symbol I'd never seen before, like a spiral turning in on itself. Just standing near it was unnerving. The air got colder, and you could feel this low hum of wrongness under the floorboards. It was a constant, oppressive weight in the house. I found Eleanor's journal in the library, its pages so thin and old, they felt like they could turn to powder. For years, her entries were just normal. Gardening, household accounts. But then it changed. Her handwriting got wild, frantic. "It knows I'm here," she wrote. "The dust. It remembers. Every betrayal, every muffled cry, every sin sealed behind that door." She wrote about an ancestor, a woman named Seraphina, who was locked away in that attic 2 centuries ago. The reasons were murky, lost to family shame. There were whispers of madness, an illegitimate child, secrets that were better off buried. Seraphina died in that room, and according to the journal, she never really left. She just became something else. She became the dust. The journal finished with one last chilling entry. "Do not let it out. It's been waiting for the family line to return. It is patient." That's the moment my curiosity soured into this awful, burning need to know. What kind of sin was so terrible it had to be locked away for 200 years? What kind of madness could become so powerful it could haunt the very air itself? I told myself I had a duty to face what my ancestor feared. The truth, I was a fool. I grabbed a crowbar from the shed and went back upstairs. Section 2. The Breach and the Escalation. The chain snapped with a crack so loud it seemed to shake the whole house. The old wax seals shattered like bone. The door groaned open, and this wave of cold, stagnant air washed over me. It smelled like decay, like time itself was rotting. I flicked on my flashlight, and the beam cut through the dark. The attic was huge, with the ceiling sloping up into deep shadows. And it was full of dust, not just a layer of it, a thick, gray-black blanket that coated everything. The floor, the old trunks, the single grimy window at the far end. The old woman was right. It wasn't settling. The air was thick with it. A silent, swirling storm of particles just hanging there, like they'd forgotten about gravity. Dust motes danced in my flashlight beam, but not randomly. They moved in patterns, like tiny schools of fish. I took a step inside, and the particles closest to me pulled back. And then, they followed me. They kept a perfect 6-inch bubble around me as I walked deeper into the room. The feeling of being watched wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was physical. I walked toward an old, cracked mirror leaning against a wall, its surface coated in that strange dust. As I got closer, a patch of dust on the glass started to move. It swirled together, and it formed a shape, a handprint. It was small and slender, not mine. Then it was gone, dissolved back into the gray blanket. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled back, my heart hammering. I looked down. The thick carpet of dust on the floor wasn't smooth anymore. Where I had been standing, there were perfect footprints, but they weren't mine. They were the prints of small, bare feet. I wanted to run, to slam the door and bolt it and never think about it again. But I was just frozen, staring at it all. Then I heard a sound, a dry, scraping whisper, like sand on stone. It was coming from everywhere at once. I swung my flashlight across the room, and the beam landed on a small, child-sized rocking chair. It was moving. A slow, steady rocking, back and forth, without making a single sound. The dust around its base was swirling faster now, rising up in a thin column. It was gathering, taking form. The whispering got louder, and then it resolved into a single, rasping word. Home. Section 3. The climax and confrontation. That's when the door slammed shut behind me. The sound was like a gunshot, and I heard the old lock click into place with this awful finality. Pure, cold panic shot through me. I scrambled back to the door, yanking on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. My flashlight flickered once, then died. I was in total darkness, but not for long. The dust, it started to glow. Millions of tiny pinpricks of light swirled around me, lighting up the attic in this sick, greenish twilight. The rocking chair was still. The dust that had been gathering there had formed a shape. It was kind of human, a small, childlike silhouette made of glowing, swirling particles. And from the middle of it, the whispering came again, clearer this time, like a million dry voices speaking at once. You returned. You carry the blood. We have been waiting. The air got thick, heavy. It was hard to breathe. The dust wasn't just in the air anymore. I could feel it in my lungs, a gritty, burning feeling with every gasp. The silhouette drifted toward me, its shape constantly shifting. I could see faces in the swirling motes, tormented faces that would flash into view and then vanish. The face of Serafina, her mouth open in a silent scream. A child with wide, terrified eyes. This wasn't just a ghost. It was a collection of trauma, and I was the first person to see the exhibit in 200 years. The main shape, the thing that called itself we, pulled itself together right in front of me. It rose from the floor, a swirling tornado of dust and rage. We are the forgotten, it rasped, the voice grinding like rocks. The neglected, the sin left to fester. We are this house, and you are the final piece. You will join us. You will become memory. It lunged. It wasn't a physical attack. It was an invasion. The swirling dust surged at me, forcing its way into my mouth and nose, a gritty, suffocating tide. It was trying to absorb me, to make me just another layer of its miserable history. I swung my arms, but my hands just passed right through it like smoke. I was drowning in 2 centuries of misery. In that instant, I knew what Eleanor meant. You couldn't fight this thing. You couldn't exorcise it. You could only contain it. My only hope was the door. I threw myself backward, away from the choking cloud, and slammed my shoulder against the heavy wood, praying it would break. Conclusion. The old wood splintered. On the 3rd try, the time-corroded lock burst from the frame. I fell out into the hallway, gasping, my lungs on fire, and slammed the attic door shut. I didn't have a chain, but I saw a heavy armoire in the next room, and with my last bit of strength, shoved it against the door. I leaned against the far wall, coughing up gray grit, my whole body shaking. The whispering stopped, the cold faded. Silence came back to the house, but it was different now. It was a watchful silence. I can't leave. I've tried. The car won't start. The phone lines are dead. I'm just as much a prisoner here as Serafina ever was. The house is mine, and so is the thing that lives in its attic. I'm its new keeper. I didn't break the curse. I just renewed my family's subscription. I know it's still in there, behind the door. Sometimes, late at night, I see a fine gray dust seeping out from underneath, creeping along the floorboards. It doesn't settle, it just waits, and it watches. Have you ever felt a presence in a place you were supposed to be alone? A feeling so strong it makes the hair on your arms stand on end. Tell me your stories in the comments. And if you want to hear more from the edges of the unknown, make sure to subscribe. You never know what's waiting for you in the dark.